Today I'm talking about how to trap an INFJ, meaning how to get an INFJ stuck on you, how to lure an INFJ in, how to seduce an INFJ, how to make an INFJ want to stay with you. And yes, I'm talking about it in an unhealthy way. And I'm not giving the recipe to abusers who are out there and think like, oh, I'm going to get that information and then I'm going to lure the INFJ in. Because in my experience, and after having worked with so many INFJs, the people who do that, they will figure this out on their own. They have some antennas around it. They understand enough what they can gain through the INFJ that they do those things without me needing to tell it to them. It's actually the INFJs that I'm addressing here. Because once we know that these are the ways people can trap us, these are the ways people can brainwash us, these are the ways that people can entice us, we can actually make better choices and be aware of what's going on because, like always, we all have blind spots somewhere. So let's look at those blind spots, let's understand them so we can make the conscious choice of who we allow into our life. Before we get started, I want to remind you the next INFJ Epic Life Bootcamp is launching July 20th. So please join the waiting list to get access to the early bird prize. We're going to have a free masterclass on July 20th. We're going to have an amazing experience like always. So join our incredible community of INFJs creating their INFJ Epic Life. Everything you need to know, as well as a link to the free poster you can find in the links in the description. So I have boiled it down to 3 aspects. Those 3 aspects were the ones that are very much something that is going to keep an INFJ stuck on that person. And we don't feel that. It's not like we see it and we say, oh, a person is trying to manipulate us. Because most of the time, people are not actively manipulating us. It's not that a person goes out of their way and says, I want to trap in that INFJ and then they're going to give me everything that I want. They're going to help me transform my life. They're going to make me feel great about myself. And I'm just going to give them breadcrumbs. It's actually a little bit different. It's people who have pain in their life and they feel like the INFJ is giving them something of a relief, which we very often can do. And instead of thinking like, okay, this is going to be an equal exchange or there's going to be an appreciation, the other person is just in so much pain that they just keep on taking and are not aware or able to stop that process. So the first thing, and this is in no particular order, I've experienced people starting with 1 and then, doing more of 2 and then 3. And, it's always also a matter of what kind of personality type you're dealing with. So some personality types are just much stronger with, the things I'm going to talk about in step 2 and 3. So don't think of it as like step 1, 2, 3, but just like 3 things that work together. So the first thing is that other people appeal to our empathy. So if you have a person who will get you stuck, in 9 out of 10 times, that person has some kind of pain point in their life. They are actually appealing to our empathy. We feel like we can save them. We feel like we have to help them. They're not aware of how great they are. They are suffering all the time and they're not appreciating who they are. And people who are going through those things, they're exerting their pain. And you see this, there are people going through life who, have pain points and they don't share it with anybody. A lot of INFJs are like this. So yes, if you would really know what's going on behind the facade of an INFJ and the fact that we overextend ourselves, that we give more into a relationship than we're getting back. Yeah, if you know those things, you will recognize, okay, this is also a person in pain. This is also a person who's not acting in their best interest, but it's not like that obvious. The types that I'm talking about, they feel the pain and they need other people's attention. They need other people's energy. They need another person to give them the validation that they're good people based on that other people are paying attention to them. Remember, for us INFJs, it's rather different. It's more like I pay attention to somebody else and I want to get the appreciation that it's good enough. The people that I'm talking about that really appeal to our empathy, they're going through pain and they're showing this pain visibly. For us, it's very obvious. That person is going through pain and apparently they can't help themselves. They just have to, put it to the outside. You can see it through their behavior. You can see it through self-sabotaging behavior. It's really, really obvious. And this is a key component, because if we don't feel like that person needs us, or we could potentially save them, or we could potentially, make it happen for them, then we're probably not going to get trapped, because this is one of those things that just stops us in our tracks. We're going somewhere, or we may be not going anywhere at all because we don't know where to go to yet. And then there's somebody who might need our help in this way. It's like a sale flash sign, right? I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. I have pain. Please come save me. That's how it feels like to an INFJ. And I'm sure if you think back about all of the relationships that you've had, so not just romantic, whatever it may be, there was probably a part of it where you felt this, where you felt like, well, that person needs me. They have gone through so much. They have had childhood trauma. Somebody didn't treat them right. And so that's why they're acting out this way. That's why they're suffering. So before we go to the next point, I really encourage you to remember this. So the next time when you have a situation like this where somebody is visibly in pain, that you don't directly go there and think this will not have an effect on you. Think about all the times before where you were lured in this way, where you were trapped in that situation, and then you pretty much couldn't leave because you felt obligated, or because you felt like the other person would suffer so much. Because once we're attached, it's really hard to not think about what is best for the other person. So we're not really making the most rational choices here. And so this is one of the main things we have to be aware of. Does this person need us? Is there a part of us that feels like if I'm not there, their life is going to crumble? If I'm not there to make their life better, it's going to fail, right? They're going to not fulfill their potential. They're not going to, be happy. I'm the one who can save them. Always remember, you can only help people who really want your help. And even more than that, we're not here to give other people fish. We're here to teach other people how to fish. And you do that by being a fisherman yourself, meaning you have to choose yourself first. And this is one of the areas where you can say, I'm not going to get involved in somebody else's pain because it's not my pain to begin with. And by me being an example of not getting lured into situations that are not healthy for me, I'm actually leading by example and showing them how they could also make better choices for themselves. That doesn't mean that you can't have empathy for others or that you can't give out of the goodness of your heart, but then rather do it through a healthy outlet. You know how I always say, find a place, find an outlet where you're being appreciated and where it's obvious that you are the mentor, you're the teacher, you're the one who's giving something, and you're allowing other people to appreciate that gift if they respect you in this way. Most of the time when we have a relationship like the ones I mentioned before, if you would ask that person, are you aware the INFJ is, saving you? Do you feel like the INFJ is the reason why your life is sort of working? Are they the reason, you're thriving? And I'm pretty sure that person will say no. They're going to keep taking because you're giving it to them, but they're not aware or appreciative of the fact that they would be lost without you. Because at the end of the day, nobody's really lost without you. Every single person can only save themselves. And it's an illusion of us to think I'm going to make that person feel good and then everything is going to be okay. Because yes, it's like this warm blanket that we can give a person, but it will probably enable them to do even more of their self-sabotaging behavior because they think this is what I have to do. And if I'm getting the feedback of, oh, I'm still being loved, what reason do they have to change their approach? Similarly with us, if we continuously give more than we're getting back, but we're still getting enough back to, sort of like survive, we're not going to stop. Most of the time we stop when we have a situation like this and we see we've been completely depleted and we have to change our behavior. We cannot be saviors to people, not in this way where we're that much invested and where it affects us to such an extent. It's just not sustainable. And everything that's not sustainable is not really creating a long-term solution for anybody involved. The second point I want to talk to you about is that that person is definitely more present than you are. So that means, as a general rule, everybody that doesn't have inferior sensing, introverted or extroverted. So everyone who isn't an ENFP, an ENTP, an INFJ, or an INTJ. So if you have a person who is more in the real world than you are, because sensing is just higher in the functional stack for them, that is a person who's way more likely to stay in the present, who's in the here and now, because it allows us to continuously stay in our head. The thing that is the hardest for us is to be present. It's our last function. It's a weakness of ours. It's something we should work on and do as much of it as possible. And, I always say like, okay, we're going to find a little bit more balance through that, right? So if you, for example, and I'm giving a very extreme example here, but let's say you're acting 90% out of your intuition and you're only 10% really present in the moment, a way more balanced approach would be if you reach 80-20. Right? So for every one of us, there's a different balance of how much sensing, you need and how much you're able to actually implement in your life. But we're always going to stay INFJs. We're not going to turn into an ENFJ or an ESTP or whatever it may be. So sensing is hard for us. And if we have the illusion that we could just attach to another person and get so many of our needs met while we don't have to be present because the other person is taking care of that. So that need to actually experience something in the real world. So if they're doing things in the real world and we can just absorb it passively because we're always around them. So for example, a person who is just, the life of the party, or a person who's just a little bit more risky than you when it comes to real world behavior, and you can be around that, it makes us feel alive without us actually having to step into the real world. And I've fallen victim to that many times. This is probably one of the things that has gotten me the most. Like that's when people got me on the hook. And I'm talking about romantic interest. I'm talking about friends. I'm talking about situations that never really, were helping me to be all that I can be because they allowed me to stay in my fantasy more. They allowed me to stay in my, intuitive mind and, really live everything out without having to go out into the real world. That does not mean that I encourage you to only have close relationships with people who have, also inferior sensing. My husband, for example, is an ISTJ. So that's a person who's very in the moment. And he goes a lot into his head when he does his things because SI is, also an introverted function, but he's really in the real world. It's not like I'm doing it, but I'm already at a place where I know that I have to create my own, real world experience. And so it's like two people parallelly going towards their separate, paths, and we're just walking side by side and have something that we do together and, a plan and a goal of where to go. But there is not this attachment anymore. And this attachment is always based on the illusion of I can have what I want in life without having to tap into my own sensing. And it is always an illusion. It's never possible. There is this theoretical possibility that you could meet somebody and it fits perfectly. You have your weakness, they have their weakness, your strength or their weakness, and vice versa. And it's all great. But, most of the time, and I'm really talking about 99% of the time, that doesn't even mean that we're still going to go where we need to go because nobody can really be in your head. If you have ideas, if you have goals, they're based on you being an INFJ. They're based on your intuition. So even if you have a really strong sensor and, you merge with each other, they're still not going to be able to manifest all of your ideas that you have in your mind in the real world because they just won't have access to them. The only person who has access to your vision, to your ideas, to all of that is you. And so you're also the only one who can really start putting it into action. You can then say, oh, I'm going to need you to help me, make this better. And, you can hire people. You can have people who are collaborators. You can have, a spouse who will just help you to get more of what you want. But you have to be the one who puts it into action. You are the one who, has started the process. And you just get somebody in there who can help you to facilitate that, but you are the one who has to step into the real world and has to expect from themselves that they're not going to stay in their mind forever. They're not going to rely on another person to give us, the sensations that we're looking for, because we don't want to start taking action because it's like such a vulnerable place for us. We have to be the ones who do that. And once you start taking the action, and I've seen this with, so many INFJs, and I've seen this with myself, once you've set out like to create that life for you that is based on what you want and how you see the world, you're not going back, because it gives you such a stability. It anchors you in. And once you're anchored in, you know where to go, right? It's like, now I'm in the real world. I can't be here all the time. Like, I can really be present only for a short amount of time during the day, but I'm going to use it for the most important things that are going to, push my life forward. That's what we actually learn and practice and continuously fine-tune through bootcamp and through our community, how to make that happen. And it's a really interesting process because you see all the struggles, but also the success stories that come with it. This is really something that builds up momentum, and so it becomes easier and easier to go down that path. And once you've done that, you can't really fall victim anymore to the massive amount of entrapment that we could have fallen victim to, before that has happened. Definitely for me, like a huge difference. Like, even if I get now into contact with people who I've had this kind of unhealthy relationship with, I see the tendency and I see the allure and I see the charm and I see how seductive that situation is from like a, mind perspective. But I know it can't ever get this far as it used to, because I'm just like grounded now. So you can't really, pull me so much into your world. And that's why I really encourage all INFJs, start working on your own life. Where are you going independent of like single people in your life? This is where I'm going. This is what I want to achieve. This is how I want to be of service. And it's independent if that person is in my life or not. And the third way how to trap in an INFJ is if you have a person that is showing emotions. We as INFJs, we can get so caught up in our, introverted thinking and all our introverted functions. So, the NITI loop, it allows us to fine tune so much of, information that we take in. So if you have, let's say, somebody who's an inspiration to you because of the way they live their life, the way they express their emotions, the way they just exude emotions, then if we add our flavor to it, and our flavor that we feel like is our biggest strength is, our introverted functions, because we're introverts, it really allows us to, use other people as muses, to use other people for inspiration, for our internal creativity, for our internal dream worlds. And it feels like if I don't have that person, then my life is cold. Like, I just don't have that emotion. And what we have to recognize is that we feel this way because if we have somebody who's sort of taking care of the emotional side of things, we can lean back into our perceived strengths, right? And INTI. And of course, we're going to get trapped in that. Like, how can we not? There's this illusion of, this is such a heightened fantasy. Because if you have another person who's taking care of the extroverted parts of your life, right? Or the things that you seem to care so much about, the things that are going to give you the emotional impulses, the things that are going to give you inspiration. Yeah, like how can that not trap you in? All the moments where I have experienced the biggest highs in my life were exactly that. And I'm not only talking about romantic relationships. I'm also talking about friendships, with ENFJs, INFPs, other feelers, even ESTPs. There's this possibility of having this amazing inner life that is available to us if we attach to another person in that way. So we absorb all of their emotions. We pretty much even subconsciously enforce them to lean into their emotions, although that might not be the healthiest for them, right? Because it just gives us such a kick. And it's an addiction. It feels great, but every drug feels great in the moment. And it's really hard to get out of it, because then you recognize, okay, let me go back to the real world, which means that, my high definition color world is now only half of that, is only 30% of that. Like, how can that ever be the better choice? But it is the better choice because all of those situations that I just described were based on a lot of pain. They were based on not having something that I want. It's actually this discrepancy. It's like another person, wanting to do things that are not healthy for them. And so we're doing things that are not healthy for us. And it's like a war in such a way. How the most beautiful music happens so often through pain? It happens through heartbreak. It happens through, not feeling seen or feeling things are not really at this peaceful place. Yeah, that's why. So yeah, it gives us like this great kick in our mind, but it's just not sustainable. And so this is just something we have to, understand and make the sacrifice of saying, okay, I'm willing to give up this short-term high for a long-term, appreciation of my everyday life, where I'm not going to continuously put myself in a worse and worse position, because what happens is the other person leans into their side that is all the feeling side. So for an example, the INFP in your life is leaning into their introverted side. So they're leaning into, FI and SI, or the extroverted, person. So for example, an ENFJ is leaning into their FE or their SE, or even an ESTP who isn't a feeler per se. They lean into extroverted sensing and extroverted feeling. See how every one of those examples, the person is leaning into the parts of them that are in reference to if they're extroverts or introverts. So the INFP leans into the introverted part of themselves. That's the one that they most likely want to be in. And it's also the one that's connected to a feeling aspect. Same thing, in reverse for the ENFJ and the ESTP. And for us, it's the same. What is our go-to thing to do? NITI. Not creating emotion, just passively taking that emotion in, right? And so through our NI and TI, we make it more intense. We, give this vague emotional thing that we're experiencing, we're making it like really crisp and really intense. And so it becomes like this dream world in our mind. But just compared to a drug. Yeah, it feels great, in the moment. It's not sustainable. And so it's on us to say, I'm not going to get trapped in situations that are not healthy for me. I might tip my toe in it, but not to such an extent that I get lost in it for inspiration. But I always know home is where I am. And home is that I have to go out into the world. I have to create emotion so I get emotion back and I get inspired through that. I listen to different things. I allow myself to be, emerged with different situations and not just one person. And so I take in more and more, and then I create a world that makes me feel at peace and that is sustainable, and that makes me feel like, yeah, even if this isn't like this heightened place, it is something that I can control and that I can continuously make better. And believe it or not, for our nervous system and even for our mind, this is something that's long-term way more exciting, because it's something where you feel like, oh, there's progress. Things are happening. Things are getting better. It's getting more and more exciting. And I'm the one who's in control of all of that. So this gives you a completely new outlook on things. So take those 3 things that I talked about today with a grain of salt. Just know that there are tendencies of ours to get trapped into situations. And if you're in some kind of in-between space, just think of them. Like, really ask yourself, is this something that I might be falling victim to? And it might not be the best thing for me long term. So remember, if you want to join a great community that is working and creating that sustainable life that feels amazing in the process, then join our amazing INFJ Epic Life Bootcamp community. We launch July 20th. Everything else you might want to know, you can find in the links in the description. And if you want to watch another video now that is in alignment with today's topic, then check out the video you see on the screen right now. I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.